Welcome to another episode of Saints Edified. I'm your host, Arturo, and I want to thank you once again for tuning in. Today is a special episode. As you can see, we're recording today, and it's a hybrid episode, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But before I do that, guys, I want to just explain what we're about at Saints Edified. If this is your first time visiting, we explore theology, devotion, and evangelism, all the while engaging the non-believing world. So if that's what you're into and you want to learn more about that, subscribe. Also, too, last year we talked about pro-life ministry, abortion. We even talked about Molinism. I interviewed Eli Ayala from Revealed Apologetics. We covered the doctrine of Scripture from the Westminster Confession of Faith. If that's the kind of stuff that you're into and you want to support that this kind of ministry, then visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/saintsedified. Now today, like I said earlier, this is a hybrid type of episode. So what I mean by that is that this is being shared on two platforms, on the Saints Edified platform and on the Redeem Project Radio platform. And I have a guest today, which I'll introduce him in just a minute. But if you guys don't know about Redeem Project Radio, it's a 24/7 online radio station for Christian hip hop. We play obviously Christian hip hop, but we also do podcast shows. We also do sermons on Sundays, scripture reading from Streetlights Bible, and we do. We're going to do live DJ events pretty soon, but yeah, it's just a great resource, and it's all from a Reformed perspective. So if that's what you're into, then check out redeemprojectradio.com. There's a place where you can support on there as well on the GoFundMe. But yeah, so speaking of Redeem Project Radio, I couldn't do it on my own, so I actually needed some help from friends that I met online of all places, and we all had the same vision on this. And one of them is here with me today. He's one of the hosts from For Christ y Cultura podcast. I'm sure most of you guys already know about them. They've been doing this for a while now, and so I have my brother here, Jon Gonzalez. So how's it going, bro?
Yo, what's good, brother? It's good to be here with you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, bro. But no, I've actually been on his podcast before. I had the privilege of that. So I'll link it in the description below. We actually talked about Redeem Project Radio. Now, this episode isn't going to be about Redeem Project Radio. It's actually going to be about culture and theology. And this is something that I know, and this is why I asked him. I know that this topic is close for Jonathan, and we're going to talk about that. So this episode is again, it's going to be on Redeem Project Radio. So check out the YouTube page on for Redeem Project Radio. Subscribe if you guys can, and also hit that little notification bell. That way you're notified whenever we upload a new episode. So can you explain just a little bit, man, what your podcast is about, and maybe even explain or tell people where they can find it?
Okay. Yeah, so I think just like you said right now, this topic, Christ and culture, that's literally the name of my podcast. And this conversation that we're going to have today is exactly, that's why my podcast was birthed, because I was trying to figure out how they relate and how they are distinct, how Christ and Christianity, how somebody like me that grew up a pagan, my mom became a believer, and how our culture being Mexican and collides or flows with Christianity. And growing up, I think that was a struggle for me and my mom. And when I became Reformed, I think that struggle became more clear. And just working things out in my mind, I found brothers that had the same, that were like me, that were Latinos that came into the Reformed faith, and we saw this need, so we created this podcast called For Christ y Cultura. And we've been doing it. We had that idea since 2018, so it's about 2 years. We started recording in 2018. By God's providence, those first episodes never made it out, and we kind of rethought ourselves. We rebranded ourselves, and in 2019, bro, we started recording our first official episodes. And
Nice.
I don't do this podcast alone. I am one of three. So I have my co-host, Caro. She's a Colombian woman from Florida, and Josue, he's from Philadelphia, and he's Puerto Rican. So we're just three Christian Latinos working things out
Nice.
with culture. We talk about things that are relevant to us as Latinos, um, and yeah, we try to stick into that bounds with culture and
Yeah.
Christianity, and we try to flesh that out and make it practical for everybody. So
Nice,
that's a
man.
little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, bro. Yeah, yeah. No, and it's a blessing, guys. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description to the podcast. I enjoyed it. You guys are hilarious too. So, and like I said, and earlier before the recording, we're talking about how amped up Jonathan gets. Before before the recording. So you can hear it in there too. And really, it's just three Latinos who have fun recording and talking about Christ and theology, man. It's just and culture. So it's a huge blessing, and it's very unique. But we hope to see more of this come out later on, man. So yeah, bro. So let's just get right to it, man. I want to talk about culture and theology, right? So, bro, can you explain to the audience, man, to the listeners, what is culture?
I think when I think about culture, to me, it is a couple things. So I would say it is who you are. It is how you were raised, your upbringing. It is your background. It is your traditions. It is also, even in some sense, I was thinking about it, your worldview in a way.
Wow.
So it's that it's tradition. It's upbringing. It's your surrounding environment. All those things create this thing called culture.
Yeah.
And there's many cultures. There's Mexican cultures. And Mexican culture is different from like hip hop culture.
Yeah.
But I think they all relate because there is a sense of worldview to it.
Right.
So,
No, yeah, bro. Yeah. That's good. That's good, man. Yeah, and I agree with that. And what I want to talk about is how culture relates to theology. But before we get there, bro, for those who don't know what theology is, or maybe are just brand new to it, we know that the basic definition of theology is the study of God, right?
Study of God. Yep.
But from a Christian context, man, can you explain what theology is, just quickly?
Well, theology is a study of God. Theology is Christianity. It is doctrine, and doctrine is just teaching. The Bible is theology. It explains us who God is and how we as humanity relate to Him. So this whole Bible that Christianity is focused around teaches us the Creator and what His attributes are and how He is and what's important for Him and how we relate and how He created the creation to respond to Him. So that's pretty much what theology is. Theology is the is the knowing and the understanding of this God and His plan.
Yeah,
So that's how I would describe theology.
Yeah, that's good, man. Appreciate that. So, all right, boy. Yeah, that was a good answer, man. And earlier you talked about how culture has to do with worldview as well, right? And worldview is used a lot when it comes to theology. So we see a lot of a connection between culture and theology. So I guess the next question I want to ask you is, how does culture relate to theology?
I think culture relates to theology in a couple ways, bro. I think theology is the understanding of God, and culture in a lot of ways is the experience and understanding of man. So I think it relates to each other because we all of us, we you as being like a presuppositionalist, right?
Yeah.
We all acknowledge that there is a God. There is a God. So all of us, no matter if you've been taught that there's a God, we have this sense in our human being that there is a God. So we search for it, bro. Every culture, every people group has a God of their own, whether they make it in their own likeness or their own making. So because we are made in the image of God, we long for Him. So as we are longing for Him, we create culture, bro.
Right.
We create our own kingdom, whether we think we're God, and we create our own kingdoms and our own way of lives, directed by our own wills, or, as you see in the Bible, God intervenes into humanity, and he tells us and he explains to us what culture is and what the right culture is. So
Right.
you see that from the beginning, like from the calling of the Jews and how God created their whole culture, bro. They were to be distinct and to be holy and to do things and to wear things and to sing certain songs. And so you see the creator, bro, creating this culture
Right.
in the scripture. So I think it relates to it because we are created in the image of God, bro, and we create it because we long for that connection with our creator, bro.
Yeah. Amen, bro. Amen. That was good, man. Yeah, and it reminds me how scripture does talk about that Christ will save people from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. And we definitely see a cross, between culture and theology to some extent. So well, one thing, bro, that I really had to mention this in this discussion is what's typically assumed of Mexicans, right? Of the Mexican culture. For
Mm-hmm.
some reason, the Roman Catholic theology is ingrained within our culture,
Yep.
like automatically almost, and I think again, 80% of us grow up in that kind of environment where we're raised in a Catholic church. But it looks like about like more than 50% of Latinos identify as Roman Catholic. And even then, like me, like not growing up in church, right? I didn't grow up in church at all. But every time I passed the Roman Catholic Church, I would do the sign of the cross, because I saw other people do it, and there's also like a high reverence for the Pope, for those who were never, part of the Roman Catholic. Like my dad, he for some reason grew up watching events of the Pope, for example, and I remember when I was a kid, he set the TV on, and when the Pope would go to Mexico and stuff, and also you see like statues or stickers of the Virgin Mary, and all these things. So a lot of times, in culture, because we're all seeking God, and we all want this faith. A lot of times, our culture might be good, but then it might have a really bad theology, and therefore tainting the rest of the culture itself, right? So, there's people who say, I'm sure you have, aunts and uncles who say that they bleed, like Catholic, like they. Like that they'll die Catholic, you know what I mean? And no matter what, and they don't even go to church, they don't even go to church or anything,
Yeah,
but yet
no,
they're going to die Catholic, And so, anyways, man, what I want to ask you next is this, man, because clearly, maybe those on your podcast and my podcast know that we're Reformed, right? But perhaps listeners from Redeem Project Radio have no idea what Reformed theology is, and they may be actually enjoying the podcast and the shows that we play throughout the week, which includes, For Christ and Gatura and Reform Raza, these other ones, right? So I want to get into what is true theology, right? What is true biblical theology? But before we do that, bro, I think it's just necessary that we first explain and give a basic understanding of what Reformed theology is. So do you mind doing that, bro? Do you mind kind of just breaking it down for the people on what is Reformed theology?
In a simplified version, correct?
Simple, or I mean, if you have to kind of get a little technical, just define your terms. That's all. Just define your terms.
Okay, I will. So I think Reformed theology is an understanding of the scriptures that sees a sovereign God creating humanity and having one plan of redemption from all eternity past. And he carries that one plan through the history of humanity. So he created the world and he broke into it by revealing himself to people. And since then he had a one plan, and he wanted to redeem people for himself. So that, I think, in the most basic sense, that's what Reformed theology is. But let me give you a little bit more of a technical understanding.
Go for it.
So Reformed theology, so that's the base, right? So we believe in a sovereign God, that he has control over creation and salvation, that from the very beginning, just like you did not choose how you were birthed or what family you were raised, or if you're Mexican or Honduran or Colombiano or Puerto Rican
Mhm.
or even Americano. You just whatever.
Mm.
You have no say over that. So we believe that that same God does that, even bringing you to faith. He gave you this faith. So the reason why
Mm.
you're a Christian, it isn't because you were good enough. It isn't because you knew more than the people you grew up around or you're smarter. It was because the sovereign God picked you from before the foundation of the world.
Mm.
So, and his whole plan from the very beginning is to save people for himself. So he does that, and he brings
Yeah.
people from all nations and all tongues to worship this one God. And historically, this has been done. Reformed theology has been understood and and explained in what we call confessions. And
Mm.
and confessions is literally just taking every question that you have about theology or God, like even the basic one, who is God, right? Who is
Mhm.
God? So the church has been creating a way that people can understand who God is in a basic level. Like the Bible is
Yeah.
big, right? We could open up the Bible and we could try to find the scriptures, right? And try to answer this one question: who is God, right? And
Yeah.
we'll go in and people won't even know how to start or where to go to find that answer, right? Because it's not clear
Right.
cut.
Yeah.
So what historically has happened is that the church has created these confessions and catechisms to help understand and explain the the basic and then some not basic things of the faith,
Yeah.
like what are the attributes of God, who is God, how does he relate to our salvation, who is
Mhm.
Christ, and what does
Mhm.
his atonement mean for us as human beings, and did he come to
Mhm.
save everybody? What about church? How should we act at church?
Yeah.
um, what qualifies somebody as a pastor? So historically that's been wrapped up in the confessions, and that is, so yeah, I think it's just an understanding, bro,
Yeah.
of of who God is, of a sovereign
Yeah.
God, and how
Yeah.
he relates to his people, bro. And it's
Exactly, bro.
about Jesus,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah, it is. It's about Jesus, and like I said, it could be simplified down to a few sentences, but it can get really, really deep. And for anyone who wants to study Reformed theology, you'll see that quickly. You'll see that very, very quickly. That yeah, the basics of it is this. Like I call it three C's, right? The three C's that qualifies someone to be reformed, and that's Calvinism, which is tulip, right? The
Mm-hmm.
five doctrines of grace, right?
Yeah,
Then there's to be covenantal. You hold to covenant theology, and then to be confessional, which keeps you within orthodox
yeah,
belief and doctrine of the church, right? So our belief didn't start, when we got saved. It started way back with the apostles, and being confessional, it helps us stay within that wall, I guess. Because a
mm-hmm.
lot of times what we see in church history is that people branch out and start believing in false doctrines, false Christ, and false gospels. So Reformed theology, we believe it's like the clearest lens that we have for Scripture when we read Scripture. Um, there's other ones that aren't Reformed that we still see as, we're still within the faith, right? There's like Pentecostals, there's Baptist,
There's
the independent
Lutherans, bro.
Lutherans, yeah, Lutherans, Flame. Let's
Flame,
wait, bro.
I
Let's
see
wait,
you,
bro.
bro.
No, we love Flame, man.
Yeah.
He's Lutheran now, and he broke our heart, but it's all right,
So it's traditions, it's expressions of Christianity. There's
Yeah, and again, like, don't get us wrong. There are some dividing lines, right? If someone preaches a false gospel, for example, we can't see them as brothers, right? If they preach a false gospel, if they preach a false Christ, if they reject and deny the Trinity completely, and they hold to what's called modalism, or these other views of God that aren't orthodox, that aren't Scripture supported. Um, we have the basis to say, okay, like we still need to evangelize to those guys, but before we get there, though, we have to know what we believe, and confessions help us do that. Yeah, anyways, I think we went a little bit longer than I expected on that one, but hopefully,
yeah.
no, but it's good though. I really do hope that people listening to this could at least, they have more to go off of now to study Reformed theology or theology in general, man. At least now you guys have a basic understanding of what Reformed theology is. We emphasize the sovereignty of God, the plan of redemption, the covenants, election, eternal security or perseverance of the saints. We emphasize on those key doctrines. Okay, man. So that being said, talking about Reformed theology, bro, we are a minority within a minority. Okay, because
Yeah.
the Reformed Church is small compared to the rest of the church right now. So there is a sense where we have to keep ourselves humble, right? We have to keep ourselves humble and not get too arrogant in this. We know that's only by God's grace that He saved us, but also that we know what we know. It's only by His grace, and people are different walks, right? So let's talk about what it's like being Latino and Reformed, okay? Because that's a whole different world for some people, and some listeners are in that process right now, bro, where they're having somewhat of like a identity crisis,
Identity crisis, yep.
Yeah. So anyways, but before we do that, man, can you tell us about your transition from, or your transition into Reformed theology? Anywhere you want to start from the moment that obviously you were saved already, right? And then later on you came across Reformed theology. Is that what happened, or
Yeah.
did you first come? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was raised in the church. My mom, when we came here to the United States, I'm first generation. So I came here illegally as a kid with my mom. So when we got here, by the time I was like 5 years old, my mom found Christ, bro, and she converted.
Wow.
And she started following Jesus over here. So I grew up in the church, bro. When I was about, like, in my teenage years, I rebelled, bro, and I rebelled hard. Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna try to make this short, but long story short, my whole life, bro, has been a life of a backslider, bro. I grew up in the church, and I there were seasons in my life where I tried to come back, and I would go hard for the Lord for like a year, and then I would fall off, and then fall off for 3-4 years, and then try to come back, and then go hard for the Lord, and then fall off. And it happened. And how I came across Reformed theology, bro, in the midst of that was Christian hip hop, bro.
Oh, nice.
And it was one song. It was by Seven. The song was called "I Need the Gospel," and so Seven was one of the only Christian hip hop artists that I would listen to, and that's because he was real, bro. He really seemed like he was about it, not just like, oh, he's a street dude, which he is, and also not just because he's a Christian, because he is, but it was because he was so open about his struggles, bro.
Yeah.
He was so real about his vulnerability, what he failed at God about, and that's why I enjoyed him, because I felt like a failure, bro. I felt like a failure, and I can relate to him. He has a song that says, like, well, he has a lot of songs, bro, that I just can relate to. But anyways, I listened to this one song. It's called "I Need the Gospel," and he had a preacher in the beginning and in the end. It was like a sermon clip, and I remember, like, just that voice, bro, just that sermon clip just stuck in my head, and I remember, and I never heard nobody talk like that, bro. And
Nice.
And then one day I just like, who is that? Who is that? So I looked up the song, and it was this dude named Paul Washer.
Oh man, there you go.
And so that kind of started my journey into Reformed theology, bro. But I let it go.
But before that though, before you got to that point, were you was your mom in a Pentecostal church or?
Yeah. So just like most Hispanics, like if you're not Roman Catholic and you become a Christian, you're Pentecostal.
Okay.
I think most people. I don't think, at least right here in Reno, Nevada, where I'm from, bro, there's no variety. There's
right. Yeah.
There's
true.
either you're a Catholic or you're a Pentecostal, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a Pentecostal. But you know what? When I in my teenage years, um, I went into Victory Outreach because I was a little cholo, you know. So so I went to Victory Outreach, and that's kind of where I got. I guess you could say I got discipled. Um, I even served in some leadership capacity at Victory Outreach. But like I said, I was always in and out, you know. So so yeah, going back to that song, that's what started my journey, bro. And then I just got introduced to this world, bro. Like I just started listening to YouTube sermons by him, by Paul Washer, and I just like I said, I never heard anybody speak like him, bro, with so much conviction and like and knowledge of the scripture. Like, bro, I think at that point that's what I needed, you know. You know, they say often when you listen to a Paul Washer sermon, you come out of that thinking, "Am I even saved?" You know.
Yeah.
Uh, and, uh, and that was necessary, bro. But that's kind of how I got involved into Reformed theology. As I as I was listening to YouTube sermons, he would drop names in books, and like he would say like, "Oh, I'm studying this book," or this one preacher once said. So every time he would mention something, bro, I would write it down, and that's how I got introduced to John MacArthur, John Piper, R.C.
Yeah.
Sproul.
Right. Right.
And by the providence of God, bro, during this whole season in my life where I was just listening to sermons online, I wasn't even going to church, bro.
Hmm.
I was done with church, but I just knew that whatever these dudes were preaching, it was real. It was the gospel, you know.
Yeah.
And by the providence of God, I looked up some podcast app or something because I heard somebody talk about podcasts, and then it was just I just remember there being a whole bunch of names, right? It was like a Christian podcast application on my Android, and I was like scrolling through names, and I just remember landing on R.C. Sproul, bro, because I thought I had heard his name before. And,
Yeah. Nice.
And then at that point, it was in October, and he was going through the Reformation series in October. And I remember I was listening to the whole series, bro. And at the end of it, he's like, "This is Reformed theology. This is what the Reformed always taught and believed."
Nice.
And I was like, "Reformed theology?" I was like, "Is this what this is?" Like prior to that, I had no idea what this thing was called. All I knew is that I started believing these crazy things, right? The sovereignty of God.
Yeah.
Like the 5 points of Calvin. I didn't even know it was the 5 points of Calvinism. You know, like doctrines of grace that that men are totally depraved. So that's how I found out what Reformed theology was, and I don't know, bro. After that, I just started growing and growing in my understanding and going more deep into it, you know, and
Right.
and then that's how I came into Reformed theology, bro. I became a Presbyterian. You can't see my hat right now, bro.
Well, that's where John the Presby comes from, right?
Yeah.
Nice, bro. Nice. Yeah, you know, bro. And I have some follow-up questions, but before I ask that, just I want to explain also to the listeners how I came across Reformed theology and my transition. It's funny because like I was, yeah, you're right. Me being Latino, I was at a Pentecostal church, right? And I got saved at the age of 15. Didn't grow up in church. Got saved at 15. Started going to this church, and within like 2 years, I came across two Calvinists at Chipotle. You know, they saw me with my Bible. I don't know if you have I don't know if you have a Chipotle at where you're at, but like Chipotle is like a burrito restaurant, whatever.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's like all around, but we were there, and I had my Bible. It was after youth group. I had my Bible with me, right? And these two Calvinists see me and like, "Hey, like, is that a Bible?" And I was like, "Yeah." And like, "Here, take this." And long story short, bro, like they were hyper Calvinists. You know, they would evangelize Calvinism, and they also believe that if you don't believe in Calvinism, they didn't use the word Calvinism, but if you didn't believe in these things, you're not saved and stuff. And So that started like a long study series, right? I started exploring this. I'm like, well, I kind of already believe in that right there, and I kind of believe in this too. I was like, once it got to the point where I couldn't really debate these guys, like they were smarter than me, they were more knowledgeable than me. I had only been a Christian for 2 years, right? Uh, I started looking at all my study Bibles, right? I had the MacArthur Study Bible that I would use like every day, and so I went to the back and I was trying to look up ways to
So
to
you already had that study Bible.
yeah, I already had it, and I would use it like I still have, I have it somewhere back here, and it's falling apart, bro. It was one of my first study Bibles that
Oh
I
wow.
ever used. It was given to me by a brother at church, um, and then I remember at the time I already liked I had already been listening to Paul Washer, like I was all about Paul Washer at the time, and I remember I was like, first I looked into the study Bible. I was trying to find ways to argue against what they were telling me. Come to find out, MacArthur, 5-point Calvinist, and I'm
The
like, oh,
Calvinist,
that's
yeah.
crazy. So yeah, so then afterwards I was like, you know what, Paul Washer, man, Paul Washer, I'm sure he would, he wouldn't agree with this, and I started recalling some sermons that he was saying. He mentioned Spurgeon and others. They were all Calvinist, and then I looked up
Yeah.
Hard Cry Missionary, and they were Calvinists. And I'm like, oh, no way. And so I was, you know what? I was like, I know guys like Lecrae and Flame, like they're theological, and so I was looking up their lyrics. Come to find out, Flame was like this hardcore,
The Calvinist at that time. Yeah.
yeah, and I remember, so I remember just kind of just like thinking about this. I was troubled, bro, because and then I had a book by Archie Sproul I'll take to school. Uh, I can't find it, but it was called Now That's a Good Question, and
Oh
and
yeah,
I
I have that
and
book
I
too.
yeah, it was one of the first books I bought as a Christian, right? And I'll take it to school because we had like 20 minutes of reading time at school, and I would go to that as a Christian. I'll just kind of go through that book myself, and so I looked him up, and come to find out he was also a Calvinist. So all my resources were like, and it made sense though. It made sense why I kind of was already agreeing with these guys,
Mm,
but I just didn't want to go as extreme as they were going. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so shortly after, my friends, we were all convinced of the 5 points, and finally, long story short, bro, we hashed it out with those guys again. I was kind of kicked out of my church a little bit. Later on, my pastor apologized, and he just reassured me that this is my home church, and he loves me and everything. It got pretty crazy, bro. It got pretty intense at the church, and that's for a different topic. But
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
only like 18 years old at the time, and later
Wow, bro.
later on I came across a Reformed Baptist church called Sovereign Grace, and it was on the west side of town, meaning the nice, upper class side of town, where I was more on the east side of town, which is like more of the mainly black, Hispanic, poorer side of town, right? So different culture, and this is what I want to talk about. This is where we're going to start talking about the whole difference, right? Of being Latino and
Mhm.
also being Reformed. So so now that they know the story behind us becoming Reformed, right? It just came out of studying, listening to sermons, loving Christ, wanting more to know more about who God is, right? That's what theology is.
Yeah.
So, bro, what's the first thing that you noticed, man? What's the first thing that you noticed between your old church, Pentecostal church, versus the Reformed church you started going to, man?
Oh wow, bro. It's it's like night and day, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's everything's different, bro. Everything. Every single thing is different.
yeah, it
So,
is.
um, dang, I don't even know where to start. Like, because everything's so different. The worship style is different. The
Hmm.
people there who are sitting there are different. The preaching is different. Same, like even like prior to be coming to a Reformed church, I really never heard the gospel, bro. Like
Wow.
explicitly
Yeah.
taught. Like I always heard Jesus has a plan for you, or
Hmm.
Jesus died on the cross. Like like I said, I grew up in church. I knew that, but that became cliche to me, bro.
Yeah.
Jesus died on the cross. Like I knew that it had something to do, like somehow that brought salvation. But I still didn't know what that meant. Even as the leader at my old church, like I have not heard nobody preach the gospel explicitly. So
Hmm.
I think worship style was different, preaching was different, people sitting there is different.
Mm.
And I mean, we could pick apart worship style, bro.
Yeah.
It's like hymns and there's there is some instruments, but not really. The main
Yeah.
focus. Oh, one of the things that shocked me the most, bro. I should have said this first, was that everybody's
Mm.
singing, bro. So Pentecostal church, bro. Yeah, people are singing. Yeah, heck yeah, people are dancing. Like they're loud,
Yeah.
but but it's but it's like you have like the piano going all crazy. You have the bass. You have the guitar. You have
Yeah.
all like it's like a concert, you know.
Mm.
And it's like, but here the main focus was this like the singing, bro. Like when
Yeah.
we were praising the Lord, it wasn't the piano wasn't overplaying anything.
Yeah.
It was the people actually singing. So I remember standing there, bro, and they're like, okay, turn to this page, and then I had this book that had songs in it,
Mm.
and they, I'm like, okay, whatever, we're gonna sing,
Mm.
but bro, everybody started singing, and I remember
Yeah.
just looking like like everywhere, and everybody was singing, bro, and it was just the weirdest thing because I've never heard grown men, kids, like all of them
Yeah.
singing like that, actually
Right.
singing,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. 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 So corporate worship was definitely just a whole different experience compared to the Pentecostal church that you're going to and this new Reformed church you're going to, right? So, and what about your earlier? You talked about like everything's different from the preacher to the people there. What do you mean by that?
well, I already kind of explained what the preacher part was.
Yeah.
The gospel was actually taught there, like the Bible. I mean, the
Right.
Bible was taught at the Pentecostal church, don't get me wrong,
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
but it was different, um because again, it highlighted the gospel. Whatever text we were in, it always came back to this message.
Hmm.
Um, so, and then with the people, well, bro, everybody was white, bro. I remember, like
Yeah.
straight up, like so
Right.
just being there, you know, I got there because I was hungry for the word, bro. It wasn't
Yeah.
because of anything else. Because it was a complete culture shock. Because everything I see is like that movie Blood In Blood Out.
Mhm.
When Crucito and the other guys walking into the art studio,
Mhm.
where he's walking, they're walking into they're all
Yeah.
thugged out,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and and
I
and
remember that. Yeah.
and that fool, he busts out his sunglasses. He's like it's too bright. He's like, there's too much. I don't remember how he said it, but it's like, I gotta put these on because it's too bright in here, referring to
Yeah. Yeah.
a whole bunch of white people,
Right. Right.
and that's what it was, bro. I remember a couple months in, or maybe like a couple weeks in, I look at my wife, and in the middle of service, bro, I'm at my wife and I'm like, babe, we're like the only Mexicans here. Like,
Mm.
have you ever noticed that? And she's like, she looked at me like if I was stupid, bro. She's like, of course I noticed that. That's like the first thing I noticed. So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I mean by the people, bro.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of white people, bro. People
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
people that don't look like me, that don't have the same
Yeah.
backgrounds as me.
Yeah, no, yeah. So that was my experience too. When I first went to the Reformed church I went to, it was actually, now it's like a large church. It grew. It got, the Lord really blessed that body. But and I'm still, I still, the pastor there is still like a big brother to me, and I'm involved with all, with people that we hang out, often. But I remember when I first went there, though. When I first went there, it was me and a buddy of mine, and he actually was white, but he was one of those white guys that grew up around other, like Latinos. So even he felt out of place. Even he did, being a white guy, he felt out of place when we went to this church. But I remember I looked around and I was like, oh man, like just like I'm really the only Hispanic dude here, and I saw one lady, she was black, and when I got to know her, she was like a couple years older than me, And I just remember it felt somewhat like, okay, well, here's someone that kind of knows how I feel, you know what I mean, being in this church.
Mm.
But as far as like coming across brothers who loved theology and who loved, Reformed theology, that to me was like a breath of fresh air. I remember hearing the sermon,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
I walked out there feeling alive, bro. I felt like
Hmm.
revived, I'm like, oh no
Hmm.
way, what, like, how did I miss out on this? And um now that's kind of the good stuff, right? The good stuff is that, at Reformed churches normally you get verse by verse preaching, solid preaching too. The fellowship there, it's very it's theological and everything. But now this is no offense to that church that I went to, because they know I love them. I love them, and I've been praying about this for months, bro. I mean, I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, I even talked to my wife about this, because I want to make sure that I don't paint them in a certain light that they don't
Yeah.
deserve. You know.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's important, bro, that you say that, because when we say, like, there was a whole bunch of white people,
yeah,
that isn't necessarily a bad thing,
it's not a complaint.
because
No.
yeah, because bro, these white people like embraced me and loved me, bro.
Yes. Me too, bro. Me too. Same
Like
thing. Yes.
right away, bro. The first day that I visited, bro, they were there. Like they like, what's up? Like not like that, but they
Yeah.
really were interested in my life. Like they
Right. Right.
really like, and in time, bro, they became my family.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not, we don't say like, oh, there's a whole bunch of white people,
No. No.
and
No.
like
Yeah.
it was what we're saying is that was a culture shock to us, because
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
we grew up and the people we grew up with weren't white people. So
Yeah.
you go in a room full of white people, it's a culture shock. So that's
Yeah.
why we bring that up.
No.
Not
Exactly.
because
Exactly. Yeah. And again, like when I went there, not never once did I think like, oh man, there's too many white people here. Like that'd be
yeah.
pretty that'd be pretty racist of me to say that. And no, it wasn't like that at all. It was more like I was like, wow, like I'm literally the only brown person here. Oh well,
Mhm. Me
and
too.
I remember as time went on, I started noticing something, bro. I started noticing something, that there were certain things that I would say that they wouldn't get. Just a little while ago, you brought up blood in, blood out. Okay, if I bring that up around them, they're like, What? Blood in, blood out? What is that?" And so there's certain things I couldn't even bring up to them. Yeah, like Dave
Yeah.
Chappelle, for example. Like I used to love watching Dave Chappelle when I was younger, and some of them were like, Who's this? He's a comedian," and like stuff like that, right? Where I'd bring up certain things, and just they wouldn't get it, and vice versa. They would bring up certain things,
Oh
they would
yeah.
be all they'll be all laughing, and I'll be like, what show was that again? Like what? And so there's things like that where it would happen a lot, right? And one thing that I noticed too was the fact how, especially me being a young man at the time, right? I was like now like 19 years old, around there, 20 years old, out of high school, trying to figure out what to do with my life, right? I started noticing that there was a different upbringing for other brothers there that were my age. They had a different upbringing, completely different.
Oh yeah.
For them, it was very, very common to leave their family for 4 years, 6 years for college and come back.
Mhm.
Whereas for us, like no, we just go to a local community college if we could afford it, and if things work out, if we don't have to work, um, there's so many different things, bro. Where I kind of start feeling like I'm kind of held back, bro. Like I feel behind
Mm.
compared to these guys, and little by little, man, I started looking at my culture like, bro, what happened to me? Like why was I raised that way? Like thinking if it was wrong,
Mm.
and
Yep.
and I had to repent of this, man. And I think I mentioned it a little bit on your podcast, where I had to really repent, because I was starting to think things like, the Hispanic culture, reading isn't a valuable thing. I started thinking things like that, right? Like how reading, like I remember I used to get made fun of for reading, and but then thinking about it, a bunch of kids just make fun of different things. It's not just Hispanic culture, but I started like
Yeah.
I started thinking like this, man. I started connecting things, and really I was really putting my own culture down, but for the culture that God placed me in, bro.
Mhm.
I started to really have certain feelings, right? And for years, man, it was like this for years, and I could share more and more about what happened, but I know you have something to share, and I think what you shared on the podcast before was really good, because I think people know you now. They know how you are. They hear your podcast, and I think it's kind of interesting what happened to you, man. So like, do you mind sharing just a little bit about? I hate to say it, negative effects, but do you mind explaining that experience, man? How it was for you to like jump into this world and then suddenly start looking at yourself and be like, man, is
Yeah.
something wrong with me? Or
Yeah. I think I when you introduced me, I kind of brought it up, and I'm gonna bring it back right now because I think this struggle we struggled with even before this time.
Hmm.
Because as a Christian back then, my mom, right, I told you, became a Christian.
Yeah.
So it's interesting now looking back, is one of the things she did, bro, is stripped us from our culture. A lot of it, bro. A big, huge pump.
That's true.
A lot of it, bro. Because she made a division between lo que era pagano and the, like the, you know, the old customs, the Roman Catholic traditions. Like Pentecostals stripped down, bro, and said no, like we're not even gonna listen to like any kind of music. Like, what do you mean, like anything? But we're not gonna put no kinds of images or no kinds of, you know, like. So even back then, bro, being Christian and being Mexican, even for my mom, was a struggle. And so growing up, bro, I the only reason I have some traditions, like Mexican traditions, is because my mom and dad's divorced. So I grew up with a lot of the Mexican traditional Mexican stuff from my dad's side, you know. But my mom's side, we didn't have that, bro. I couldn't, heck no, I couldn't go out, I couldn't do nothing, you know. So when I came into the Reform world, bro, it was really brought to light even more, like 100% more.
Yeah.
Because my experience, bro, I think it just goes back to us as human beings, and going back to that topic of what is culture, and how I think that because we're made in the image of God, we want culture, we want community. So what happened to me is similar to what happened to you. Is that I came into this, bro. I was raised. I was a cholo, bro, straight up. You know, like I talked a certain way, I dressed a certain way. Like, bro, being a cholo, like you're proud of your Mexican American heritage, bro. Like proud, bro. Like right now, like I got a Mexican flag, like you know, like, and I would mob down the streets, like just repping, bro. Like, you know, like proud as can be about Aztec culture and all that, bro. So when I came into the Reformed faith, bro, I thought it was pagan, bro. Like I literally did a 180 because I was trying to adapt to the culture that I was in. So I started doing my hair. I grew out my hair and started putting it to the side, bro. I started dressing different. I started thinking like, man, why? Like, I started wearing different jeans, bro, and it was just because I thought that one of it was because I was trying to be like the now culture around me at that time, right? The Reformed world, this whole new world that opened up to me. I was just trying to be like that with them, you know?
Yeah.
Like and then the other part of it is growing up as a Christian. My mom did tell me, like, you know, we don't do that because we're Christians. We don't celebrate this, or we don't do this because we're Christians, right? There's that strict divide again. So I don't know. That's what happened to me, bro. I started seeing my culture as something evil, bro. It's something wrong. Exactly. It's something pagan, you know?
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's kind of what I want to highlight, man, is that a culture itself isn't necessarily sinful or evil, right? Obviously, there could be things that happen that are pretty sinful and evil within a culture, but a culture itself, by definition, doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's evil or sinful. And there's a lot of good things about our culture, bro. One thing that I think is great about the Hispanic culture is that we're really big on just what's the word I'm looking for? Like family is one thing, but also like just always being around each other, you know, always being around
community.
each other. Community. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Community.
Camaraderie, community. Yeah. Loyalty,
Exactly. It was, yeah, exact loyalty to you. It was so common, bro, at the Pentecostal church, for example.
Mhm.
After leaving church, hey, where are you going? Oh, we're going to go to the Chinese restaurant over here. You want to come? Yeah, let's go. And then we'll hang out the whole entire Sunday, you
Yeah.
know. And then by 5 o'clock, I mean, there was times where I took a nap at my friend's house before church, you know, at five,
Hmm.
you know, because
Yep.
we're just hanging out. And then after church, we'll go back and hang out. I remember that wasn't happening at this church. I had to make
Hmm.
appointments to hang out with somebody, which is odd,
like
you know.
like a month in advance, bro.
Yeah, no, it was so weird, man. Where like no one just couldn't hang out just to hang out. It was always by appointment or okay, well let me look at my schedule, bro. Um, hey, how about lunch? I'm like lunch. I was like an hour. I was like, what is that? You know, like
I'm like, I work. Like
I know.
I work through this day. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing too. A lot of times the jobs that I had were not the regular jobs that they had, you know, and so
No,
so,
the
so
office job that you could take an hour
yeah,
lunch
I know,
and drive
right.
somewhere.
Yeah, and a lot of times I worked overnight, for example, and now that's becoming more common now. Just our whole society is changing in that way. That you know, working different
Mhm.
schedules that's how it is. But at one point, like I'm talking about like 10 years ago or so, right? Um, I just remember like it was really hard for me to get that community feel like before, and I just remember I started hanging out with the pastor a lot and talking to him a lot, and he's actually so his last name is Vegas, so he's actually like half Hispanic. But he grew up white. I mean, he's just a white guy, you know. And I remember like he actually liked the community. Like he actually loved the community aspect of things, and I'd hang out with him a lot and everything. Um, but I remember there were certain times where I kind of felt like if he wasn't around, I kind of felt like, man, bro, like I'm not getting much fellowship, man. It's
Mhm.
like I really miss those Sunday nights. Now Sunday nights I'm just by myself, you know, and or you know, at that time there was no evening service, and so things like that were kind of hard, but I think it hit me more, man, when people and if any listeners are happen to be white and they go to a predominantly white Reformed church, this might be something that I don't know, advice or something, I don't know, but there were some times there were some times where, man, I hate to say this, bro, not everyone, but some
Just
just
say
kind of
it, bro. Just say it.
they equated me being Mexican to being poor, right? So they always felt bad if I
Mm.
wanted to buy them food. Like, hey, let's go out to lunch. Arturo,
Oh yeah.
bro, don't worry, bro. I got you, bro. I got you. How about next time you get me, all right, man? And I'm like, bro, please let me just get. Okay, let's go Jack in the Box. I'm like, no, bro, let's go to the restaurant, brother, please. You know, it was almost like, bro, really? Why
Yeah.
why are you treating me like this? You know, and there's things like that happen sometimes, right? Where it is somewhat offensive, you know, but at the same time, it's more hurtful, man. I was like, come on, bro, like I'm just like you, man. I mean, what's wrong, you know? And so that's just one example, bro. I have plenty of more examples. I don't
Yeah.
think I need to get into it,
I
but
know.
just but this is something that we this happens to all minorities. If you're white and you go to a predominantly Hispanic church, we're gonna say things that are offensive by accident. You
Yeah,
know, it happens
bro.
both ways.
I heard somebody say it. I don't remember what podcast, but he was saying, "You want to know how we feel as minorities going into a church that has people who doesn't look like us, doesn't have nothing to relate to us. Like, you want to know how we feel is, bro, white people, like, you could leave your church
Mhm,
and go to a all white Spanish speaking Pentecostal church and
mhm.
see how you feel. Or you don't speak Spanish, okay, leave your church and choose to go to a black church.
Yeah,
Sit there and see how you feel.
yeah,
Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like a complete, like, different.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's being out of place. It's feeling out of place all the time. You
yeah,
know.
exactly.
It,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so so just imagine that. Like, if you
yeah.
can't, like, I don't get it. Like, like, just imagine yourself going to an all black church and then just, or go visit one and just for one Sunday and see how you
Yeah,
feel. Like,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and not only that, but a lot of times too, when you're building relationships, when you're building relationships with these people, um, it's very, you know, like again, like I feel so blessed and privileged to be part of that church, but again, there's some things where it was kind of hard to get through, right? And um, So I'm glad you brought that up, bro, about going to a different church, right? Right now, if I choose to go to a different church, a Reformed church, it's going to be a white church. It seems like every Reformed church, I'll be moving pretty soon, and I'll be going to I already know it's going to be predominantly white Reformed church. Now I'm at a point now where it doesn't bother me anymore. Like back then, it did bother me, but only because I felt so out of place and I had that identity crisis. Like I started changing I have a picture of myself when I was going there, bro. I mean, I don't look the same, man. It's crazy.
Me too, bro. It's crazy. It's so crazy, bro.
Yeah, and
so crazy.
Bro, I'd even stop listening to the music I like to listen to. I stopped.
Me too.
Every time I brought up like Christian hip hop, like, oh, rap, that's garbage. Like I remember, like, when they would make these comments about the music I grew up with, it's like, bro, come on, man. Like that's part of the culture I grew up with. Like when you call rap garbage or hip hop garbage and stuff, and that's a common thing out here. I used to hear back then. So I remember I stopped listening to hip hop and like things like that, bro. It was really tough, man. But right now, it seems like the church, the Reformed Church, is predominantly white, and it's because throughout history, the Reformed Church has been really, really good at reaching middle class and upper class neighborhoods and communities. We're starting to see a shift in that now, thanks to Pastor Rudy and others, in LA. There has been a shift, and even within the PCA, right, the Presbyterian Church in America.
Shout out to PCA.
Even we're making efforts, bro. We're making efforts to try to change that demographic, man, because it doesn't make sense that that most of our leaders, it does reflect the culture, but the ratio doesn't match up when it comes to Hispanics and blacks. So anyways,
bro,
from your perspective,
and I think just quickly, that's what troubled me the most at first in the beginning, and it continued. It was like a thorn in the flesh, bro. It just kept irking at me, and I kept thinking, like, why is this the case? Because coming into Reformed theology, bro, I was so excited. Even before stepping into a Reformed church, bro, I was being mind blown and blessed. Like, I couldn't believe, bro, how somebody could preach the gospel and teach me about Jesus so explicitly and help me in my faith and strengthen me. Like it just made sense. It made Christianity the most clearest, bro, the most sense. It gave me assurance. It showed me who Jesus was. So coming into with that zeal, like, man, this is, and seeing, like, bro, like, what? Okay, fine. I'm the only brown guy here. But then, like, you get more involved and stuff, and then you see, like, this whole scope, like, wow, it's like, there isn't, like, any of us here, like, really. Right. Why is that? And then again, like, it's like, why? It's like, why? Like, I don't get it. Like, this is Christianity at its purest form, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Why is this not spread? Why isn't this spread to everybody? Why doesn't everybody know about that? Like, it doesn't make sense to me,
Yeah.
It didn't make sense, bro. It didn't make sense why there wasn't people who looked like me that believe these things, or why they hadn't gone out and and then later I got it, and then later I understood why, and it is because of some of it is because of what you said, bro. Because I think it's multifaceted. There's many reasons. One of the reasons for sure is that it appeals a certain status, demographic, and culture. It does.
Right.
Because Reformed theology, the Reformed Church has a culture. With it. It brings you into this culture, an existing culture. So.
No, exactly, bro, exactly. And I didn't even get to talk about the politics side of it, and I probably won't get to it. It's probably not enough time to get to it tonight, but I mean, you can imagine, bro. I mean, just think about it. Yeah, even while I was a Republican conservative, I used to carry around the Constitution in my back pocket, type of conservative. That was me, bro. I mean, I was
getting to that point too, bro. I was getting to again. I was getting to that point too, bro. I was like a theonomist at one point.
Later on, later on, I did kind of hit, theonomy as well. But there was a point where I was like, you know, this hardcore Republican guy willing to debate anyone. And I remember being in discussions, man, where I'm trying really hard not to give people any ideas, because like they might know who I'm talking about. But there was a discussion where, you know, immigration was brought up, right? And the slogan is this, you know, we're for legal immigration, not illegal immigration, right? We're for legal immigration, not so. So there was a time when someone said, amongst these Christian conservatives, they said, wow, like today I went to the community college and I couldn't get in, and they're like, why? Because it was full, and when I looked inside, it was a bunch of young Hispanics, and so the school is just overfilled with Hispanic people, and more than likely, their parents didn't come here legally. You know, and then it became a thing where like this discussion, and I remember I jumped in. I was like, hey, I thought we were against illegal immigration. Like, they are here legally. If they're in that college, you know, they're here legally, and you're just assuming that their parents are illegal. I was like, so let's suppose that their parents are legal. Are you still upset? They're like, yeah, because like, you know, like a lot of them, and they start, bro, a bunch of them started saying this stuff, right? So that really hurt me, man. That really hurt me. And for once, I remember feeling like, you know what? If this is what we're about, you guys are losing me here, you know? And so anyways, I didn't want to talk about politics, bro. Dang it. So here, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on because if not, we'll go a different way. Because I do want to get.
Bro, just let me just say one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so just imagine me, bro.
Yeah.
What kind of a wrecking ball, or like a bomb, bro?
Yeah.
Here comes this ex-cholo Mexican dude that also happens to be illegal, because I was, bro.
Mm-hmm.
When I came into the church, I was illegal, bro. So once I started telling them like,
oh man,
about my problems, that came up, bro. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have any status. Like, I don't. And like, bro, when I said that to like I'm illegal, I told them I was illegal, bro. You just imagine like the face that they made, like, bro, just imagine how the awkwardness to that, like they didn't even know what to do, bro. At this point, you know, we created, there was fellowship there, so there was some sympathy, but it was just, bro, like I said, like it was a bomb in their midst, and they didn't know how to handle it, bro. They didn't know how to do it. I remember talking to my elder one time, bro. This is a quick story, side story, but I remember telling him, yeah, I'm gonna go get like a mica chueca, bro, like a false documents, bro. And I was telling them to pray for me, bro.
Oh man,
you had to do what you had to do at that time, like, is that right? Looking back, is that right, like, to do that? Well, you know.
Oh man, yeah.
So imagine them like trying to give me counsel through that, bro.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, bro, yeah, that's tough. And again, we also sympathize with them, bro. I mean, we understand that these are unique things that they probably never thought of facing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's grace. Yeah, and so there's grace in that, man. I mean, that's the thing, bro. There's grace in that, and I hope that this next question I want to ask you, bro, has to do with basically like, what can we do about this, right? Because I think first thing, we must have grace with one another, you know, and understand that, yeah, you can be strongly convicted in your Republican conservative beliefs. For the record, you know, politically, most people think I'm Republican, you know, and because I'm conservative, you know, and even then, being conservative, there's different nuances there, right? But my main priority is just being more biblical, you know, and sometimes the left has good things to say, sometimes the right has good things to say. I'm independent now, but when I talk to a fellow Reformed person who happens to be white, and they're strongly, you know, Trump 2024 guys, I always hope that there's grace and love between us as we talk about these things, you know. I think right now what we're seeing in Reform circles, bro, is that we're seeing a this unnecessary division, among and there's less of that. There's no more tolerance in even having a communication with one another. You know what I mean?
I think it's happening in the broader, like, United States evangelical church.
That's true.
I think it's because of the polarization of the nation, bro. So we're reflecting that in some way in our churches, bro. Yeah, not just the Reformed Church, but I think, bro.
Yeah, so
all churches right now.
Exactly. So as of now, bro, like, what can we do? Okay, what can we do? Because I know you on Facebook. Like, you also like ruffled up some feathers, for the conservatives, and it's funny because I know you, and I know where you stand, and we talked already about this. So, part of me when I read this, I can't help but laugh. I'm like, bro, if they only knew Jonathan a little more, they wouldn't jump to the conclusion that he's, like, super liberal leftist,
like a liberal,
yeah, but we need to have, I think what you do is you try to say, okay, look, you guys know I'm Presbyterian, I'm Reformed, I'm conservative. But let's talk about this issue here, and so it's that communication aspect, right? So we know that communication is something that we need to do, okay? But what else can we do, bro? As how about this? For us being from the Latino culture, how can we learn from those who are not Latino and the Reformed culture, and vice versa, and grow together in love? Especially like during a time like this.
How could we learn from our non-Latino brothers and sisters?
Yeah, and grow together.
I mean, we could learn from them because they do have a lot of good things.
Yeah.
About them, bro. Like for example, like, I had never thought about what we call catechizing my children.
Oh yeah.
Like, what that means is teaching my children the faith, like intentionally teaching my children the faith, and trying to pass it down to the next generation. Right. And they were, coming into the Reform world. That was a big thing, bro.
Yeah.
And that's something that was very lacking in my upbringing, bro. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, yes, we prayed, we did Sunday school, like, of course they took us to church, but it wasn't intentional, like, hey guys, we're gonna spend like 15 minutes, 30 minutes every night or every other night or every weekend and talk about, like, open up the Bible and I'm gonna do this thing, pray with you guys, speak to you guys about Jesus,
Right.
So I think, how could we could learn a lot of good things, bro, from our brothers and sisters. But I think that's why the good thing about this resurgence of minorities is a good thing, because we're coming into this world with new eyes, bro, with a new perspective, with new ideas, and it might make our brothers and sisters uncomfortable, right? Because they're used to being comfortable, dog. Like that's what it is. Like, remember I said, like, later on I found out why it is that there isn't people that look like me in those churches. I know why. It's because they're comfortable, bro. It's because they're afraid to go out. It's because they're big-headed. Like, it's that's just facts, bro. It isn't like talking crap. Like, that's just the reality of it, bro. It's just evangelism isn't, sadly, a priority. So what could we learn from them? Well, we take the good things from them, bro. We take the theology, right? Like, that's why we're, bro, I've never been so strong in my faith, and it isn't because of me. It's because I understand who Jesus is more, bro.
Yeah.
And that's because of my white brothers, bro.
Yeah.
That's because of Reformed theology. That's because of all the books they've written, and this, that's because of them,
Right.
So I think understanding each other, and I remember I used to pick fights, like, kind of, bro. Like, I got to the point where I rejected my culture, but then I totally went back, and then I was kind of like, why aren't you guys doing this? Like, mad at the world, bro. But I think a lot of it is just understanding, bro. Like you said earlier, a lot of it is because they've never experienced any of this before, bro. So you have to have some kind of sympathy with them, right? Some of it is ignorance, bro. Ignorance is in its purest sense. It isn't that they just want to give you a hard time, or it's just ignorance, bro.
Right.
So I think there is sympathy, bro. Is coming down to the level and trying to understand people. I think that's part of it, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely, bro. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I also want to add to that, man. It also has to do with recognizing that, maybe there's different cultures, but we're still one in Christ, and it's okay to disagree, man. I mean, it's okay to disagree. You know what I mean? Like I know even you and I'm sure if we get down to it, there's gonna be things that you and I disagree with. Like even when it comes to this whole like racial, this whole racial thing that's happening, or the cop thing that's happening. I'm sure there's things that.
Bro, even like theological issues, bro. We're both Presbyterians. Like, we want to dive into the regulative principle, bro. Dive into homeschooling. You want to dive into what, you know, like we could go on, like, and there is going to be a point, whether republication or non-republication, one kingdom or two kingdoms, like, mill or post mill, like,
exactly,
you know what I mean, like,
and this thing, it's okay to disagree. I think what's happened too with even especially with social media is that we've taken ourselves way too seriously. We think we're very, very smart. You know, it's not always about like winning a debate or showing people how brilliant I am by debating you on these issues. We have a lot of hurt Black and Hispanic brothers and sisters out there who don't know what to do, and they're going off. They're just saying stuff, man. And racist this, racist that, white supremacy. They're just going off, man. And I disagree with a lot of what they say, but I was like, bro, I can see that pain though, man. I can see that pain that you're going through, and I know deep down that you love these brothers and you want them to understand you. And I think that's what we need to do, man. We have to recognize that we it's okay to disagree with each other, still love one another. Remember that we're one in Christ, and the main mission is to preach the gospel to the lost and dying world. And on this side of glory, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. It's not going to be comfortable. I love what you said, bro. I really love what you said about comfort. I talked about that with my wife, maybe about like 2 weeks ago. We talked about how the church today is just so comfortable, you know, and we have to just learn again,
bro. The Reformed Church, particularly, has been comfortable for a long time, bro. And when you have these minorities coming in, we're ruffling feathers, bro. Like, and like for the good and for the bad, because there is bad, bro. Like you said, like our brothers and sisters have, you know, Flame, Lecrae, like they've like kissed, they've embraced Reformed theology a little bit, you know. But they've kicked back, bro. They're bucking back, bro. Like I think, you know, we could see a lot of very bad examples of how this happens. But we're ruffling feathers, bro, and I'm hopeful that things like this, conversations like this, that us just being present in our local church, can start working towards this, you know.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, bro. Yeah, you know, we covered a lot, man. We covered a lot today. And I really do hope that this is going to be the first. Well, for one, it's my first episode of the year for Saints Edified.
Bro, and this is we kind of. I mean, we talked about the topic, but we kind of went off the rails a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But it's all right. You know, that's what happens when John the Presby is on you know, online and talking. You know, we go all over the place, right?
Oh yeah, I like to talk and I like to be all over the place, but yeah. But this is genuine conversation. I think what the listeners are listening to is literally genuine conversation, not just sticking to the script, but actually like talking about these subjects to these brothers, as brothers, right? Like we have so much in common, our stories, our upbringings, and our experiences in the Reformed world. Like, I think this is genuine conversation, bro. And this is exactly why I started the podcast, bro. Mm-hmm. And why we're talking to ourselves right now is because, like, bro, we found each other and we've all shared these commonalities, common experiences, bro. And hearing other people that have felt these things, you know, brings us kind of together and brings us like, yo, like, we're not alone, you know?
Yeah. Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, like we're not alone. And here's the thing, bro. There's a lot of brothers and sisters that we probably talked about that realize these things. and they're right there along. Like I said earlier, I told you about the PCA, and the PCA, like, they're trying really hard, man. They're trying really hard to say, you know what, like, it's true. Something's wrong when our entire denomination is just mainly white. When America is supposed to be like a melting pot, right, of different cultures, different religions, whatever. By now, we should have people from different cultures, and we don't. So props to the PCA and others who are trying at least. And again, there's going to be error, and I know that, man. There has been error, but it's okay. We can get through it, and we have to just love each other and still, like sharpen one another, and as long as we have that mentality, bro, I think we're good, man. And again, keep having these conversations. There will be an upcoming conversation. I don't know if you were part of that discussion on the Redeem Project Radio Facebook page, but I posted a discussion with Flame. You posted it in the Reform, but I posted it on the Redeem Project Radio, and me, Ricky Rodon, DJ Mike 5, Martin Velasquez, and others jumped in, bro, and we're like, you know what? I think this calls for a discussion, man. A 3 or 4 way discussion. Talk about these things, bro. We agree to some extent, but I think there's some disagreements, and we just have to iron it out, bro. So
I think a couple of takeaways from this conversation.
Go ahead.
I think we whether it is tension between our culture and our theology, or it's a tension between culture and culture, or it's tension between political views, or I think we need to understand that we need to see Christ as supreme, and our identity ultimately is in Jesus Christ, bro. So whether we struggle in how do we bring that into our culture, how does a Mexican embrace his culture in Christianity, like, we're gonna fail at that all the time, bro. But you know what, bro, our identity in Christ is so much more beautiful than whatever we think is lacking, and even our disagreements with our brothers and sisters, bro. Like, our commonality isn't our culture, our commonality isn't our social economical status, our commonality is not our backgrounds, bro. It's literally Jesus, bro, and what he did for us. So that's why I could shake hands with my brothers, no matter how hard there's tension politically or whatever, bro. I love my brothers and sisters because of Jesus,
right?
Because he's brought us into one family, one kingdom, so I don't know, bro. I just felt like I needed to say that, after the whole spiel. I think we needed to say that. So I just.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro. No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And with that being said, man, I think it's a good time to close. So for those of you who, again, this might be the first episode you listen to from me or from John, or because of Redeem Project Radio. If you want to find more podcasts from John, look up for Christ y Cultura. I'm going to post it. I'm going to link it in the description. He does other things too, but you can find, first check out the podcast, also his Facebook page and all that. Now, if you want to listen to more of my stuff, it's Saints Edified. Just go to, again, saintsedified.com or look up on YouTube. We're on all platforms, and so is John's podcast. And yeah, we appreciate feedback. If you guys want to leave some comments below, and maybe give us ideas on what else you want to hear, we'll definitely consider that. So
yeah, and an apology for my low video quality. I'm actually outside, so
man,
outside. And so if anybody's listening or seeing this on YouTube, is like, man, why can't this guy? Well, I have kids, all right? I have kids, and they wouldn't let me talk if I was in there. So
is it still snowing out there?
Yeah, bro.
Oh man, you've been outside the whole time?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it. We're in a desert, so it's not really snowy out here, but I couldn't imagine, man, how it is out there. So I really appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for talking about this with me, and until next time, bro, we have to keep doing this, all right?
All right, guys. Thank you for having me on, Arturo, and you need to come up here, bro.
I will, bro. I will. Take care, man. Take care.